The rain hammered against the windshield as Rebecca Collins navigated her sedan through the darkening streets of Portland. Her shift at Mercy General Hospital had run late again, a 12-hour marathon that left her bones aching and her mind foggy. All she wanted was to sink into her couch with a cup of tea and mindlessly scroll through her phone. But as her headlights swept across the intersection of Maple and Fifth, they caught something that made her foot instinctively hit the brake. An elderly woman sat crumpled on the wet sidewalk, her thin frame hunched against the downpour. Her grey hair was plastered to her face, and even from inside the car, Rebecca could see her trembling. Rebecca's heart clenched. She glanced at the clock, 9:47 p.m. She was exhausted. Every fiber of her being screamed to keep driving, to let someone else handle it. But her nurse's instincts, and something deeper, something she couldn't name, wouldn't allow it. With a resigned sigh, she pulled over and grabbed the emergency blanket from her trunk. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Rebecca called out, jogging through the rain. The woman looked up, her pale blue eyes clouded with confusion. I don't know where I am," she whispered, her voice frail and broken. Rebecca knelt beside her, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. The woman's skin was cold, almost translucent, and her breathing was shallow. "Let's get you out of this rain. Can you stand?" Together they made it to Rebecca's car. The woman moved slowly, her steps unsteady, and Rebecca noticed the hospital bracelet on her wrist, faded but still readable. Dorothy Hartley, DOB, 0350, 1954. "Dorothy? Is that your name?" Rebecca asked gently as she helped her into the passenger seat. The woman nodded weakly. "I think so. I can't remember how I got here." Rebecca's medical training kicked in immediately. Confusion, disorientation, exposure to cold. This woman needed help, fast. "I'm taking you to the hospital. I work there. We'll figure this out." 20 minutes later, they were in the ER at Mercy General. Rebecca's colleague, Dr. Nathaniel Brooks, took over Dorothy's care while Rebecca filled out the paperwork. As she wrote down the sparse information she had, something nagged at her, a strange, inexplicable pull toward this fragile stranger. "Rebecca, can you come here for a second?" Nathaniel called from the examination room. She found him studying Dorothy's chart with a frown. "She's severely dehydrated and hypothermic, but that's not what concerns me most. She has advanced dementia. According to her records, she wandered away from Riverside Care Facility about 6 hours ago. They've been looking for her." Rebecca's chest tightened. 6 hours in this weather? She's lucky to be alive. Very lucky. And lucky you found her." Nathaniel paused, then added, "There's something else. She keeps asking for someone named Rebecca." The room seemed to tilt. "What?" "She's been saying it over and over." "Where's Rebecca?" "I need to find Rebecca." He looked at her with concern. "Do you know her?" Rebecca shook her head slowly, though her heart was pounding. "No, I've never seen her before tonight." But even as she said it, something felt wrong. There was something about Dorothy's eyes, the shape of her face, even the way she held her hands, something achingly familiar that Rebecca couldn't place. Over the next hour, as they stabilized Dorothy and warmed her core temperature, Rebecca found herself drawn back to the examination room again and again. She told herself it was professional concern, but deep down she knew it was more. Dorothy drifted in and out of lucidity. Sometimes she stared blankly at the ceiling. Other times, she would grasp Rebecca's hand with surprising strength and search, her face with those pale blue eyes. "You have her eyes," Dorothy whispered during one of these moments. Rebecca froze. "Whose eyes?" "My baby's eyes. My little girl." Tears streamed down Dorothy's weathered cheeks. "I had to give her away. March 12th, 1992. The worst day of my life." Rebecca's blood ran cold. March 12th, 1992, her birthday. "Dorothy," she said carefully, her voice shaking, "where did you give birth to your daughter?" "St. Catherine's Hospital, right here in Portland." Dorothy's grip tightened. "I was 17. My parents, they said I had no choice, that I couldn't give her a good life. But I never stopped thinking about her, never stopped wondering." Rebecca's world was spinning. She'd known she was adopted. Her parents, George and Linda Collins, had always been honest about that. They'd told her she was born at St. Catherine's, that her birth mother had been young and unable to care for her, but they'd never known her name, never had contact information. It was a closed adoption. With trembling hands, Rebecca pulled out her phone and searched for the contact. She rarely called. Helen Morrison, the social worker who had handled her adoption case and kept minimal records. "Helen, it's Rebecca Collins. I need to ask you something urgent. My birth mother's name, do you have it in your files?" There was a pause, the sound of papers rustling. "Rebecca, you know I can't." "Please, it's life or death." "Is it Dorothy Hartley?" The silence that followed told her everything. "How did you—" Helen's voice was barely a whisper. "Yes, Dorothy Ann Hartley. She gave birth to you on March 12, 1992, at St. Catherine's Hospital." Rebecca's knees buckled. She grabbed the counter for support. "She's here, at my hospital. I found her tonight." When Rebecca returned to the examination room, Dorothy was sleeping, her breathing more regular now. Nathaniel had admitted her for observation, and they'd contacted Riverside to let them know she was safe. Rebecca pulled a chair beside the bed and took Dorothy's hand. For the first time in 34 years, she was touching her birth mother. As if sensing her presence, Dorothy's eyes fluttered open. For a brief, crystalline moment, they were clear and focused. "Rebecca?" she whispered. "Yes," Rebecca said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm Rebecca. I'm your daughter." Dorothy's face crumpled, decades of pain and longing flooding to the surface. "I looked for you. After I turned 18, I tried to find you, but the records were sealed. I never stopped loving you, not for one single day." "I'm here now," Rebecca said, squeezing her hand. "I'm right here." "You became a nurse," Dorothy said, a smile breaking through her tears. "I always hoped you'd have a good life. Are you happy?" Rebecca thought about her small apartment, her demanding job, her simple but satisfying life. "I am. My parents, my adoptive parents, they loved me so much. They gave me everything." "Good," Dorothy breathed. "That's all I wanted, for you to be loved." They sat together in the quiet hospital room, hands intertwined as the rain continued to fall outside. Dorothy drifted in and out of sleep, but each time she woke, she seemed surprised and delighted to find Rebecca still there. Over the following weeks, Rebecca visited Dorothy every day at Riverside. The dementia was cruel. Some days Dorothy remembered everything, recognized Rebecca immediately, and they would talk for hours about the life they'd missed together. Other days, Dorothy didn't know who she was, would call her by other names, or simply stare out the window in confusion. But Rebecca came anyway. She brought photo albums of her childhood, showed Dorothy pictures of George and Linda, told her stories about growing up, about nursing school, about the life Dorothy had given her by making the hardest choice imaginable. On good days, Dorothy would share her own stories about the boy she'd loved at 17 who'd disappeared when she got pregnant, about the pain of holding Rebecca for just 2 hours before saying goodbye, about the decades of wondering and hoping and praying that her daughter was okay somewhere in the world. Rebecca learned that Dorothy had never married, never had other children. She'd worked as a seamstress, lived a quiet life, and never stopped carrying the weight of that March day in 1992. 3 months after that rainy night, Rebecca was called to Riverside in the early morning hours. Dorothy had taken a turn. Her heart was failing. Rebecca held her hand as the sun rose, painting the room in soft golden light. "I'm so glad I found you," Rebecca whispered. Dorothy's eyes, clear one last time, met hers. "You didn't find me, sweetheart. God brought you to me, so I could see your beautiful face, so I could know you turned out perfect, so I could finally say," her voice broke, "I'm sorry, and I love you. I have always, always loved you." "I love you too, Mom," Rebecca said, the word feeling both strange and completely right. Dorothy smiled, squeezed her hand weakly and closed her eyes. At the funeral, Rebecca stood alone at first. Dorothy had no other family, no close friends left. But then her parents, George and Linda, appeared at her side. They wrapped their arms around her, and together the three of them said goodbye to the woman who had loved Rebecca enough to let her go. Later, as they walked to the car, Linda took Rebecca's hand. "Are you okay?" Rebecca thought about it. about the strange twist of fate that had brought her to that intersection on that rainy night, about the 3 months of bittersweet joy she'd had with Dorothy, about the closure they'd both needed so desperately. "I am," she said finally. "I stopped to help a stranger, and I found a piece of myself I didn't even know was missing. I got to tell her thank you. I got to tell her I'm okay, that her sacrifice wasn't in vain." George put his arm around her shoulders. "She gave you to us. We'll be grateful to her forever." As they drove away from the cemetery, Rebecca looked back one last time at the fresh grave with its simple headstone. Dorothy Ann Hartley, beloved mother. She'd only had 3 months with her birth mother, but in that time she'd discovered something profound. Love doesn't require a lifetime to be real. Sometimes it just requires one rainy night, one moment of compassion, and the courage to stop and help a stranger who turns out to be anything but. Rebecca had stopped to help an old lady in the rain, and in doing so, she'd found her way home.